endurance. Dressage, steeplechase, cross-country, and show jumping, a three-day event is really many sports rolled into one. An equestrian challenge that many consider the most difficult in the world. The three-day event horse. Today's subject on the world of horses. I'm your host, John Scott. Equestrian sports became part of the Summer Olympics in Stockholm in 1912. Three-day eventing was one of those original Olympic equestrian sports. The name, three-day eventing, comes from the fact that competitions are always held over 3 days. Day one is dressage, where the horse's balance and mastery of gaits is put to the test. Also the communication between horse and rider. Day two is called endurance, a challenging combination of steeplechase, obstacles, and cross-country. Day three is show jumping. The French name for this sport translates as the complete equestrian competition, and that's what it is. A thorough test of a horse's athletic ability, its fitness, and its courage. Every fall, three-day eventers from all over Canada gather in Chase for a major competition.
Great.
The Chase facility was created by Nick Holmes-Smith after a long career as an international competitor.
During the 80s and the early 90s, I competed at international level and went to several world championships and Olympics and Pan Am and whatnot, and sometimes I did well, sometimes I did not so well. And then in 1992, after the Olympics, I thought, okay, I want to go back west again, because that's where I'm from, and I certainly like the mountains in British Columbia, so I moved out west and bought this farm and started running these events.
The landscape round Chase is ideal for the sport, a mixture of meadow and woodland, of flat and rolling terrain.
It's quite remote here. I mean, there's moose and bears running all over the property, and for a cross-country course, you want this kind of variety. You don't want it all to be steep and hilly or too treed, but on the other hand, you don't want just an open, flat field where there's not interesting terrain for jumps. What attracted me to the three-day event was that it's an all-round sport. It challenges both horse and rider. Not only just one specific thing, but obviously in three different things. It's a very complicated sport. The aspects of it are extremely complex from the point of view of just getting the horse fit, keeping him sound so that he's healthy and his legs aren't sore. The rider understanding, being knowledgeable in all, obviously the dressage, the cross-country, and the show jumping. So it's a complete all-round type performance that we're after.
At this competition at Chase, there are 4 levels or divisions, the highest 2 being preliminary and intermediate. The division is determined by the skill of the horse rather than the rider. As a result, a very skilled rider, like Therese Washtock, an Olympian and a Canadian equestrian team member since 1979, can compete on various levels with various horses.
The horses that are competing here this weekend are a variety of ages. Casherelle is 6 years old, and she's a Dutch warm blood mare, and she's going training level, so that's one of the lower levels. And then we have Good Guess, who I acquired in early this year, and he's going preliminary 3-day, and it's his very first preliminary 3-day, and he's been going very well all year, and he's a 9-year-old. And then we have 20th Century Arrow, who's been going forever. I've had him since he was 3 years old, and purchased him from my veterinarian, and Sheila McDonald, and he is now 15 years old, so he's been campaigning for a long time.
Therese's 4th mount, her entry in the intermediate division, is Aristotle, the horse she competed on in the Olympics.
He was still quite green when he went to the Olympics, so I look at this as a very good schooling opportunity for him, an opportunity for him to learn when he goes out and goes over the course. And he is 11 years old.
Horses in training and old campaigners. All were getting ready for the start of competition first thing next morning. When we come back, the Chase, British Columbia 3-day event begins.
differences between horse trials and three-day eventing is first and foremost conditioning. How many is your first 3 day?
The chase competition is an opportunity for some to compete and for others to learn. Part of the weekend itinerary is a clinic given by veteran 3-day event Olympian Robin Hahn.
So the biggest part of any 3 day is the cross country. You've already got thoroughly practiced for that. I've been involved in this sport in 3-day eventing since 1955. And I was in my first Olympic team in 1956, and then managed to make 3 other ones in 68, 72, and 76, plus a couple World Championships and Pan American Games. And been teaching since about 1958, and hopefully wanting to give riders an opportunity to have the fun that I had in competing for Canada.
As day 1 of competition got underway, Robin Hahn introduced us to some of the finer points of dressage.
In our first discipline of 3-day eventing is dressage, and in dressage we are supposed to demonstrate the horse's training, his relaxation, his ability to move in rhythm and balance, to be able to show that in different lengths of stride, medium trot, extended trot, working trot, and is able to also demonstrate that balance in turns and circles, in trot and canter. And it is probably the hardest, most pressing or nerve-wracking discipline that the event rider goes in.
Here's Therese Washtock in the intermediate division with Aristotle. She gives us a competitor's point of view on the dressage discipline as practiced in the 3-day event.
You must stay absolutely relaxed in your body. Otherwise, the horse picks it up and tenses his body against yours. You must think about where you're going in your test, how you can prepare each stride, basically, that you're going through the test. You're preparing for the next movement.
Because of the number of horses she's competing on, Therese's grooms are kept busy. Right now, they're getting Good Guess, or Gus, ready for his first preliminary 3-day event dressage.
Gus is a 9-year-old thoroughbred that came off the track, and he is a complete demon. He's very personable, and he is always trying to figure out various ways of doing things like, he's in love with Casherel, so he's very attached to Casherel, which is the other young horse. I really have to say that the communication between the horse and the rider, for me, it's why I end up riding at all. I feel like when I ride that I'm in constant communication with them, and it's as if, as you're riding, you are completely on the same wavelength.
Soon after the completion of the dressage phase, riders begin preparation for the next day, the endurance, part of the 3-day event program. An important element of that preparation is the course walk. Here an expert leads the training group through the obstacles and instructs them on how to assess a course by walking it. Here are some of the things that Therese Washtock is concerned about when she walks an endurance course.
With 20th Century Arrow, or Dick, he's going to be taking the more worn path because he's a little bit shorter striding. Horses at this level, at intermediate level, have already experienced going over ditches like this, but smaller. So they understand when they get to this level that this ditch, even though it's very wide and very deep, that they're not going to have to jump down into the ditch and back up, but that they're jumping over the entire ditch. The same with the brush jump here in the background. Even though it's 5.5 to 6 feet in some spots, they understand by the time they get here that they can see through it, it's sparsely brushed, and they understand that they can jump through that sparse brush. And this is the water jump. And last year, I fell in. So this year, I better not be falling in.
After the course walk, it's time to put the horses and the riders to bed. Both will need all the resources they can muster when a new day dawns and the clock starts on the endurance phase of the 3-day event. After the break, the supreme test of the 3-day event horse, the endurance. The endurance section of the 3-day event is day 2. It is the day where the sport's greatest thrills are concentrated.
The second day is the most important day. It's the cross-country day, or sometimes called the endurance day. On a full phase like this, it's called the endurance day.
At Chase, the endurance day is divided into 4 distinct phases.
Phase A is a roads and tracks taken at a nice trot in which it warms the horse up over a few kilometers.
It's obviously a very easy stage. It's just basically putting in the mileage.
After the horses are thoroughly warmed up by Phase A and stretched like an athlete would stretch before a competition, they enter Phase B, the fastest part of the endurance day, the steeplechase.
The steeplechase is a track like a racetrack, run on grass normally, with brush fences up to 4'6" in height that the horses basically race over at steeplechase speed. If we'd like to look at the steeplechase fence here, and we can see that it is filled with brush and has very well identified solid logs at certain points. The takeoff log identifies the base of the fence, and then there's an apron. That's the green brush between the logs is called the apron, and it is solid enough that a horse may touch a foot on it and bounce off of it and jump the fence well having done that.
When we do steeplechase, we want the horses to be in a very long frame with their bodies very, very long and flat, galloping close to the ground. And when they jump through the fences, then you actually want them to jump through the top of the brush fence. And the greener horses will try and jump the whole works. And hopefully as you continue around, they start to brush through them. And that's really the most difficult part of the steeplechase, getting the timing, having your stopwatch organized. We use a big stopwatch like this one that we can read easily as we're galloping. And then having your halfway point picked out and keeping your cool and not going too fast.
The sport of 3-day eventing is a severe test of a horse's fitness. At the same time, no one wants to see a horse hurt.
Yes, you're at 80, actually you're free to go. Just keep walking them when you get out of here.
At the end of Phase C, the horses are checked to make sure they can safely continue.
It's called the cool-out box or recovery box or 10-minute box. We have 10 minutes where we can apply water to the horses so that we help to bring the temperature down to an optimal competition temperature. And we have the veterinarians checking them as they come in for their temperature, pulse, and respiration. And usually between 8 and 9 minutes, we take the horses and we jog them so that the veterinarians can see whether the horse is having any kind of difficulty moving in any way. So it's very closely monitored, and really any horse that's tired in the 10-minute box should be withdrawn from the competition.
Most of the horses do prove fit enough to go on to the last and most challenging cross-country phase. The scoring for the 3-day event is done according to a penalty system. Points are lost for refusing or missing a jump. 60 penalty points are assessed for falling off. At the end of the competition, the lowest score wins.
There's between 25 and 35 jumping efforts, I mean, depending on which level you're competing in. They're all different types, and as a course designer, I spent a lot of time thinking of new and interesting type fences and ways to challenge the horses and riders. The horses that do well in this sport are honest, they love work, they'd be as excited about being here at this event as the riders are. And in the start box before they go cross country, they know what's coming, and they'll be just as keyed up and keen to get going as can be. They also have to have the bravery, because we intentionally make some jumps scary to challenge, to test the bravery and courage of a horse, like say not having a jump where they can't see the landing, so for all the horse knows, he could be jumping off a cliff. The water, for example, from the surface you can't tell whether it's 6 inches deep or 6 feet deep. And these are bravery tests which you know, challenge the horse, and the good ones succeed, and the weaker ones sometimes have trouble.
An advanced horse takes about 3 years to 4 years to truly develop the condition that allows them to run at that level safely without injuring themselves. Every cross-country jump will have a certain speed that is appropriate for that horse and that rider. Horses who lift their front legs, their knees, and tuck them tightly up against themselves and stretch their back and their body to make a nice arc over a fence is very, very pleasing to us technically. The other thing is in the gallop, that when you can see a horse galloping nicely, where you listening to him, he doesn't seem to make much sound as he gallops. That means a horse is not punishing himself or tiring himself by putting his weight on his forehand and galloping into the ground, we call it. The cross country definitely is very fast when you consider that the horses have gone in the steeplechase and the roads and tracks, and now must do a further number of kilometers.
The 3-day event is my favorite competition because of the length of the endurance, and I condition my horses very well, and it's something that they have a prize here for the best conditioned horse, and I'm always out after that prize because to me the conditioning is so important. It makes the horse a lot happier with his job because he's ready to do it.
This is what makes our sport unique. It's where you've got to be good, it's where the event is won and lost, and it's what spectators come to see.
Coming up, day 3, show jumping, the final test of the 3-day event. The final day of competition is show jumping. The purpose is to show that the horse can come back after 2 days of action and still have the courage and discipline to put in one more solid performance. Now that we've seen what the horses go through in a 3-day event, it's interesting to look at what breeds are best suited for the sport. In Grand Prix show jumping, most of the top horses are European warm bloods. But the running demands of this sport make for a different choice.
The horses that are best suited for 3-day eventing, not necessarily horse trials, but 3-day eventing, are the thoroughbreds. A thoroughbred has been bred to run, it has developed a tremendous heart and lungs, and it has a endurance capability that is very suited to 3-day eventing.
We have to find quiet, sane-minded thoroughbreds. They have to be physically tough because the rigors of galloping cross-country is quite demanding, so they've got to be a tough individual of a horse. He has to enjoy jumping.
The stadium jump test itself is a test that shows the horse's agility after running in the marathon of the day before. So we still want to see that the horse is very, very supple. He is able to turn quickly. He has to be able to compress or shorten his stride and lengthen his stride.
As each competitor completes the stadium jumping course, the 3-day event comes to a close.
Looking at the whole 3 days, it's been a wonderful time for a spectator. It's been a wonderful time for most competitors. And even those that didn't succeed really feel like they've accomplished something because they've usually done better than they've ever done before.
Finally, the most successful riders receive their awards, and they accept them very much on behalf of their horses and themselves. To be successful in this sport, the communication between horse and rider must be perfect and positive, and without resistance in either direction. The victories, when they come, are emblems of that bond. In the sport of 3-day eventing, victory is never easy. The many tests of the horses and riders' ability guarantee a fair result. Thanks for joining us on The World of Horses.